Go and throttle up.
Discovery, roger. Go for deploy.
Thanks, June, and to everybody in the shuttle program. The crew is go for launch.
Roger. Nice to be in orbit.
We have followed in their footsteps to get us where we are today.
Good morning and welcome to a post-mission news conference with NASA's SpaceX Crew 2 crew. Joining us here at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston are NASA astronauts Shane Kimbrough and Megan MacArthur and Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Aki Hoshide. Joining us virtually from Cologne, Germany is European Space Agency astronaut Thomas Pesquet. It's so great to see you all back on Earth. Welcome home and thank you for joining us today for some questions. This crew safely splashed down in the Gulf of Mexico off the coast of Florida 1 week ago today aboard the Crew Dragon Endeavour spacecraft, completing NASA's second long-duration commercial crew mission to the International Space Station. Their mission set a record for the longest spaceflight by a U.S. crewed spacecraft with 199 days in space. We'll hear remarks from the crew, and then we'll take questions from media on the phone and that have come in on social media using hashtag AskNASA. With that, let me pass it off to Shane for some opening remarks.
Thanks, Megan. It's really great to be back on Earth. Our crew is kind of getting settled in, and it's good to see Thomas. We haven't really been able to see him too much, so it's great to see him virtually. We had an incredible mission. It was full of science, full of spacewalks, full of a lot of fun, full of some chili peppers. And we just really had a great time together in that really cool environment of microgravity up on the International Space Station. But it is great to be back. Gravity's interesting. And trying to figure that out again. Not sure how you people do this all the time. But it is great to be back with family and friends and other colleagues here. So thanks for following our mission, those of you that did that, and look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Shane, and you guys look great. It is great to see you. Okay, we will take some questions from media now. We are having some technical difficulties, so I'll just call on the next caller, and please state your name and affiliation, and then ask your question. You can press *1 to ask a question, and *2 to withdraw your question. So with that, let's go to the first caller.
Marcia Dunn, your line is open.
Oh, hello. Good morning. This is Marcia Dunn at the AP. For either Shane or Megan or both of you, I'd like to hear your take on how the movie making went while you were up on the space station. What was it like welcoming an actor and director on board with limited training? How involved were you while they were there? Did it hamper your work? And how do you think it bodes for future tourist visits? Because there seem to be quite a few coming up. Thanks.
Well, thanks, Marcia, for the question. Good morning. So we had very limited interaction with the actor and director that came up to film the movie on the Russian segment. They were very pleasant people. It was nice for us to see some new faces. They were very friendly. We did have some group dinners with all of us together, and that's always very enjoyable. And so we enjoyed hearing some of their stories and sharing our stories with them. We know the Russian cosmonauts were working, sort of around the clock, really, to help with the movie making. It was really a tremendous workload for them, but it was a very minimal workload for us. They did have an agreement to spend a little bit of time on the on the U.S. segment, and so we escorted them for that little bit of time. But really for us, it was very minimal impact. So I would say we don't have a good gauge from this how that would go if something like that were to occur on the U.S. segment. We certainly saw how hard our Russian colleagues were working, and hopefully that there's a great product that comes out of that for them.
Okay, thank you, Megan. Let's take the next question from the phone.
And Mark Haru, Aviation Week and Space Technology. Your line is open.
Thank you. I'd like for two of you, how about Shane and Megan, to sort of discuss your sense of the state of the space station. It recently passed its 21st anniversary of continuous human occupation, and there's some questions, I think, about some troubles on the Russian side with air leaks and so forth. And there's some assessments, I believe, of kind of the overall condition in terms of how long it could stay occupied. And so in that context. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on how it's holding up.
I'll start with that. Space Station is absolutely an amazing facility. We all got to live on there. Live and work on there for over 6 months. And of course, it has its challenges. And like anything that's 20 years old, it's we have to repair it. So we have to do preventative maintenance as well as all the science and everything that we're doing up there. So it's an amazing facility. We actually saw a new addition, the MLM, the Russian module that showed up while we were there. So it was still growing. I thought it had stopped growing a few years ago on my last flight, but it was really cool to welcome a new module onto the space station. And it's going to add so much capability for the Russians on their side, so that's really neat. But overall, it hadn't changed a whole lot since my last flight other than that. And it was very functional. We got a few new tech demo things that we were working on, like a new toilet and some new solar arrays that we worked on the outside and things like that that'll prove to help for future exploration. But other than that, I thought it was an amazing place to live and work, and exactly what I remembered a few years ago.
So for me, I, of course, had not been to the International Space Station before. This was my first visit, so I was really impressed with the expanse of it and the capability. There were times when we would have a cargo vehicle arrive that we would have, 4 different science glove boxes in work with different experiments going on. So that variety and that breadth of capability was really impressive to me, that we were able to accomplish so much research ongoing. And there's research projects going on all the time that the crew either has no or limited interaction with, and then there's projects that we have a lot of in-depth hands-on interaction with. So I just am really impressed by the varied capability, and the way the space station is designed is that those racks can come out and new hardware can come in. So as improvements are made, as discoveries are made, and new experiments are designed, we can change those things out and keep upgrading the space station, which I think is a remarkable capability. So I think it's got quite a lot left to give, and we're going to see some interesting things happen over the coming years.
All right, thank you. We'll take a question from social media from Basil's 4th grade class. They want to know, what will each of you do now that you are back from the space station? What projects or programs will you be involved in?
I think a lot of us we're looking forward to some rest and just reconnecting with our family and friends, and so we'll have several months to do that. Although these next few weeks we'll be doing a lot of debriefs with all the systems from the space station and from SpaceX and things like that, as well as we have a lot of medical debriefs to do as well, and medical testing. So once we get through all that, I think the holidays will hit, and then once we come back in 2022, we'll have a little more chance to relax, I hope, anyway.
That sounds good. All right, we'll take, we have a couple of questions about sleeping in space. So Mika asked, how comfy are the sleeping bags?
Well, the sleeping bag that we sleep in, it's actually, just a comfortable, made out of cloth, and we sleep in our own crew quarters. Shane got to sleep in the Crew Dragon for the 6 months, but we have our own crew quarters. It's about a telephone booth size, and we hook up some strings on the sleeping bag and just sneak in there and close the door, and it's pretty comfortable, I would say. I've never had any trouble going to sleep.
All right, we have a related question from Jenny. She wants to know about the temperature. Are your sleeping bags heated?
Sleeping bags are not heated, but we have a cooling system that does blow cooling air into our little crew quarters that Aki mentioned. It can get quite warm, but the sleeping bags are nice because you can kind of kick there's an area by your feet that you can kick your feet out and cool off if you need to, and of course zippers and different air vents. So they've put a lot of thought into the design of the sleeping bag, getting feedback from crew members over the years, and it's pretty comfortable.
All right, another question from social media. Let's see. Kelly on Twitter asks, if you would have had more time, what is one more thing you would have wanted to accomplish on the space station? Let's go to Thomas for this question.
And I think the good thing with a 6 months mission is that you actually do get some time on Sundays to run your own little projects. Most of the time during the week you don't have that kind of time of free time because we're working 12 hours pretty much from morning until evening every day. But on Sundays you can do your own little projects, and I think we all took a lot of pleasure in taking pictures of the Earth, watching the Earth. Earth gazing, stargazing is like the #1 hobby on board the space station. One thing I wish I had done is maybe journaling and keeping a diary of what's happening and writing down a few thoughts or a few anecdotes of the daily life on station every day, because I think it's going to go a long way in 10 years or more when I've forgotten my time on board the space station. That would be a really nice thing to have to kind of remind me of the good times we've had all together on that flight.
All right. Liam asked Megan, you shared such inspiring views of favorite places, especially national park areas. Which place will you visit first now that you are home?
That's a great question. It's probably going to depend a little bit, of course, on the season and where we can go in the winter season. I always like to see Yosemite National Park is one of my favorites, and Yellowstone National Park is another favorite, and it's gorgeous in the wintertime. I'm not sure we'll get there this winter, but there are definitely some places on my list that I'd like to take my son for a visit.
All right, that sounds fun. A question from Robert Perlman with Collect Space on social media. He's asking for Shane and Megan. NASA has said one of the reasons for sending astronauts to the space station now is to ready them for Artemis flights. Mission-specific training aside, how ready would you say you are now if NASA tapped you tomorrow for a trip to the moon?
Well, I think I would be ready to go, but I don't think my family would let me go. So, yeah, I don't think it's going to be me, but I think we're well equipped. We're trained very well, of course, here on the ground. Our time on space station helped train us to work in the microgravity environment, so I don't think we'd have any trouble with that, but I'm not sure it'll be for me.
And my answer is very much the same. I think the space station is an excellent training ground for any type of activity that we're going to do in space, whether it's on the Gateway space station around the moon or on the surface of the moon. It gives you great problem-solving capability and just, kind of the little things that you can't train on Earth, how you manage your tools, for example, and how you plan out your movements. Obviously, the surface of the moon is different than living in micro-G, but those same kinds of ideas for how you're going to plan your activity, I think those are extremely valuable, and they contribute to efficiency and contribute to your safety when you're operating those kinds of environments. So, like Shane said, we have a long line of I think fresh-faced young astronauts that are ready to go and do these things, and I think I'd have to get a permission slip from my family before I could go. So we're all ready to go. I think every astronaut would love to go to the moon, but we got a lot of people ready to do that.
That's fair. Thank you. We'll take another question from media on the line. Please go ahead and state your name and affiliation.
And it comes from Amy Thompson from Space.com.
Hi, thank you for taking my question. So I was wondering what is going to happen to your zero-G indicator, your little penguin. And also I wanted to know, what was the ride home like for you guys? Was it bumpy, or how did it compare to some of the other vehicles that you flew on? Thank you.
You got him. So we're just discussing who actually has control of Gwyn right now. So we did pack him for the return ride home so he would have a safe landing as well. And I think he ended up in Aki's suitcases. So we'll probably timeshare between our sons who helped to choose the zero-G indicator for us.
You want to talk about the ride?
Yeah, sure. So Shane and I had the privilege of flying 3 different spacecrafts, the Space Shuttle, the Soyuz spacecraft, and the Crew Dragon. So we have experienced the land landing, and compared to that, the splashdown was much softer, I would say. But I was worried after a splashdown if the bobbing on the surface of the ocean, and would make me sick. But I think it was okay for all of us, and it was a neat experience just waiting for the rescue team to come on board, and we were just chatting inside, all 4 of us, just sharing our moments. So it was a nice time to share some time.
All right, we'll take another question from a caller on the phone.
And Paul Brinkman with UPI, your line is open.
Hi, yeah, thanks for doing this. Can you guys hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I'm just, I was hoping a couple of you would talk about the spacewalks that you did and, you know, how difficult it was to get those solar arrays installed and working and compared to other spacewalks, I guess. And then also, are you guys looking forward to having new spacesuits to conduct spacewalks? Thanks.
Tamal, you want to take that? Tamal is our lead spacewalker for the first 3 solar array spacewalks, so I'll turn it over to him.
Yeah, thanks, Shane. And it brings back, only the question brings back good memories. So you see a smile on my face. Like Shane was saying, we had the opportunity to go together with him for 3 spacewalks this time, and from two spacewalks on our previous flight. So we're a very, like, we go way back as far as spacewalking together. And I think I speak for him as well when I say that these trio of spacewalk was actually very challenging. It was not easy to do because of different reasons, because of the geometry of the work site, because of the distance. We went all the way to what we joked about, we jokingly called the wild west of the space station, because it was all the way at the end of the truss where nobody ever goes, where things are a little bit different. There's fewer, handrails to grab on and things like this. So it's a really challenging environment. Also the size and the bulk and the inertia, not really the weight in space, but the inertia and the size of those solar arrays was challenging. I was on the arm being flown by Megan, so complete teamwork right there. Shane was waiting for me, his feet in an APFR, a foot restraint at the end of the space station, overlooking the 400 kilometers of void, and then we were passing this big mass to each other, assuming control with I was going to say with your bare hands, let's say with your gloved hands. So a lot of challenges, a lot of work involved for us, obviously, but also for the ground team who worked tirelessly on the preparation and the execution of those EVAs. Really great memories, great images in my head of looking up, 17 meters high solar arrays and things like this. A great feeling of accomplishment when we managed to install it. And you can see now we've kind of changed the ISS a little bit. I look at the ISS from the outside pictures. Then we see the solar arrays that we were installed, so it's kind of neat to see that. But long story short, it was very challenging, I think, for us. But it's good for the ISS. We need to install those solar arrays. The job is not over. There's 2 more pairs coming up shortly, and then in total there'll be 6 new pairs out of 8 power channels. So a lot of work still to be done. Some other astronauts than us are going to take care of this in the years to come, and we'll be watching closely. But it was a lot of fun and a lot of work getting that done.
All right, now we'll go back to a question from social media. Toronto Star is asking Megan, I wondered if you could further explain the difference in Earth views on your Hubble mission versus on the space station.
Yeah, there's definitely a difference that I noticed right away when the first time I came into the cupola to observe the Earth. When I had some free time, I thought, wow, we are really close, because when you are, a Hubble mission is quite a bit higher up, and so you're seeing more of the curvature of the Earth. But then I quickly grew to love the view that I had, because you can see so much more detail. So you could really pick out different landmarks, and that was fun, sort of to teach myself some different landmarks to find favorite places. And there's a whole process you go through when you're trying to photograph some different places and teaching yourself kind of the larger landmarks and then finding the smaller landmarks and really dialing in on the exact feature that you're looking for. So having that closer view was really phenomenal. And every view that we had, the cupola of course is the main view, but we have some views out of the Japanese module, as well as when the hatches are not covered, the Earth-facing hatches, for example, in Node 2 and Node 1, you could also look out of, and then even sometimes over on the Russian segment. So there's always kind of a different perspective and a different view to get of our beautiful Earth, and that's something that you would find us doing pretty much all the time when we had some free time.
Okay, we'll take a question from Hayden. Wants to know, what are some of your favorite experiments?
Let's kick it off. Anyway. Go ahead. All right, I'll start. I'm sure everybody's got a favorite one. One that I think all of us got to work on a little bit, it was this thing called ring shear drop that was in the glove box in the U.S. laboratory. And I was kind of interested in it because of the application. Where they're looking for treatments and maybe possible cures down the road for things like Alzheimer's and dementia. So that's something that's hit my family, and I'm sure it's hit many other people's families, and so it was near and dear to me. So I look forward to, I was glad to be a part of the experiments, and then hopefully, down a few years down the road, we'll get the results, and hopefully they're all positive for helping treat and maybe cure those diseases.
One experiment that was quite special for me, and I think, again, everybody enjoyed it, that it was going on board, was the plant habitat. So we were growing chili peppers in the plant habitat, and Shane kicked that off kind of midpoint in our mission, and the growth period is actually long. And what was interesting about this experiment, we've grown plants, of course, in space before, even produce that astronauts can eat, things like lettuce. But this was kind of a more complicated plant to be growing, and so the investigation was looking at how do you grow these more complicated fruiting plants, plants that require pollination. It has a much longer germination period, a much longer growth time to harvest. But then there's a huge benefit, which is that not just the flavor, of course, of having chili, to eat fresh chili, but also the vitamins that go along with having this kind of thing. So that was a lot of fun. And then it was particularly special for me because I found out after I got on orbit, I found out that my brother-in-law's uncle was actually the co-creator of the specific variety that we were growing. So that was really fun for my family to discover that, and then everybody was following along in the development of the peppers. So, and then of course at the end we got to eat them and really enjoy that, and that's something I think a lot of people can relate to, enjoying that. So it was something that people really got excited about, and it was fun to share that with everyone.
So for me, one of the experiments that kind of made me interested was time experiment. And so we always talk about how gravity or lack of gravity affects our body as human beings. This one targeted the sense of time and how it would affect that. And I'm not going to tell you what feedback I got from the PI the other day, but it was pretty interesting to see that. And, I was very happy to be one of the samples and provide some data on that.
Tamar, you got a favorite one?
Yeah, and for me personally, so first of all, it's really hard to pick a favorite experiment because there's so many, and the station is going around the clock. Even when we go to bed, like Megan mentioned before, scientists still use the station with outside facilities, inside facilities, and then when we get up again the next morning, we start again on some other experiments in all kinds of domains. So it's really fascinating, and for me, it's always been difficult to pick a favorite experiment. I think this time, there was one that was called celestial immunity that was actually really interesting because it targets the immune system, and I think in the times that we're living in and the challenges that we're facing right now on the Earth, the immune system has become more than a hot topic, but something that people want to know more about and look more in detail into. So I think if the space station can help, pushing those results on the ground, that's usually beneficial to everyone. Like, it's really easy to understand, and if we've done our part in that global fight, then I'm pretty happy about it.
All right, great answers. We'll take another question from the phone line.
Mr. Inokuchi from Kyoto News, your line is open.
Thank you for taking my question. Inokuchi for Kyoto News. I have a question to Mr. Hoshide. You have just mentioned about the difference between the Soyuz space shuttle and this time SpaceX Crew Dragon. Could you explain a little bit more about the difference in terms of training and spacesuits and landing? And could you mention about the possibility of the future of the commercialization of space travel? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. So, so we trained maybe a year prior to launch on the Crew Dragon capsule. But mainly, Shannon, Megan, as the commander and the pilot, they've been trained how to operate the spacecraft and, when to take over, what to do if something happens. Tamar and I were more focused on the inside, what to do with the spacesuit and all the cargo packing. And if something happens, then how to support Shane and Megan. That training, I think, was great. SpaceX did a great job focusing on what we need. It wasn't a very long training period, but nevertheless, we got what we needed. The launch and landing itself, it's just like other spacecraft, but it was smooth. I think it was more responsive. That's what I remember going uphill. The acceleration, deceleration, that was like, it was like a joyride. And I still remember that day when all four of us were like, whoop, yay, and just cheering and giggling all the way until Miko. I think this capability provides, a great milestone and a path to commercialization, and more people will enjoy the environment in space. They can bring their own idea, create new cultures up there, and I think it definitely opened a new door to space.
All right, we'll take another question from social media. Nate on Twitter for Thomas. 2 questions. Why is sharing what you see from the space station important for the world to see? Talking about sharing on social media. And what was your favorite photo to take and share?
Well, that's great questions. I think it's important to share, first of all, because I think we are a public service. We have a responsibility to do things for the people and to kind of inform people of what we're doing for them, because that's what we're doing. We're not going to space. It makes us very happy, but we're not, NASA is not sending us in space just to make us happy. It's sending us in space because it's useful for everybody. So I think it's kind of part of the job to explain why and then kind of share the adventure. There's also a very personal aspect in that I grew up, fan of human spaceflight, and I was starved of information when I was a younger kid or a teenager. There was not much you could see, the occasional book, the occasional magazine. So nowadays we live in a fantastic time where you can, watch things on the internet and follow the missions as closely as possible. So I really enjoy sharing it with everybody. I think there's a responsibility also to share this point of view, because you see the fragility of the Earth, like all the astronauts who come back from space are going to tell you. It seems limitless, empty, very vast and infinite. But when you see the Earth from space, it's very finite, limited resources. So there's a responsibility to share that viewpoint so that people understand the situation we're in. So with that in mind, I think there's too many pictures. I've taken quite a few. We've all taken quite a few pictures, but even more so this time than the first time. And for my first mission, I still have to go back and look, which is going to be a lot of work for me. So I don't know if I'm able to get to that soon. But I think, I have to mention the auroras, and I'm sure my crewmates are going to agree. We've been treated with some unbelievable auroras, much more than during my first mission. Like we've seen maybe 15, 20, some of them so bright, so unbelievably bright and active, flying right through them. And it's sad because the pictures just don't do them justice, and everybody's going to tell you the same. We tried to take pictures, some of them came out pretty okay, but still it's not the same as flying right overhead and through the aurora and seeing it glow around you, which is I think most unbelievable natural phenomena you could possibly witness with your own eyes. So yeah, I think I have to mention the auroras.
That's amazing. Thank you, Thomas. Okay, I think this is a good question to wrap us up from Typh on Facebook. What will you miss most about each other?
Wow, that's a loaded question there. No, we obviously enjoyed being together for a little over 6 months in space, and it's kind of funny. This past week has been like I've been like, where's Megan? Where's Aki? Because I'm walking around. That's what I'm thinking. Where's Thomas? Where's Mark? Because those are the faces you see every morning as soon as you get up, or if you need something, that's who you go to. So it's been a little adjustment. And I just miss being with them, honestly, because our friendship has grown very deep over the last 6 months, and look forward to continuing that. It's just in a different capacity.
It's a wonderful experience, as Shane said, to share together, and I think this crew really had a shared sense of humor. All of us, including our cosmonaut crewmates. One of the things we love to do is just make each other laugh, and that's really fun to do. It's a great way to kind of end the day and let off steam from different frustrations that you might have experienced, different challenges, and just making each other laugh and laughing in return has been one of the really special things I think about the experience. So we'll still do that, of course, when we manage to get together. But it is strange not seeing these faces every day.
Yeah, I have the same feeling, and I think I speak for all of us, but maybe 2 weeks out before we came back, I think we started to feel that, okay, this whole fun trip is coming to an end, And when we were sharing meals at the table, I felt like, we did not want to leave, that table, because it was so fun to be together. And I just miss those times.
And I agree. And for me, it's like Shane was saying now, I kind of looking around myself and expecting one of you guys to pop up at any time like you used to do, which is a strange feeling. But I think professionally, it's like the sense of belonging to a team and having the same objectives, and everybody's trying to achieve something all together. And the fact that we're so much more efficient as a group than the sum of the individuals, and I'm kind of missing that, because obviously you're reunited with your family, so you go from your space family to your ground family. It's good too, but just that empowerment to know that we would do things together, things that I was unable to do on my own, I could do with the help of Shane, with the help of Megan, with the help of Eki or anybody else, and we would do so much every day that looking back, I was like, wow, how did we do this? And now I'm finding myself alone on the other side of the Atlantic, a little bit sad, and I'm like, no, I couldn't achieve this with all of you guys, so miss you.
Same.
That's awesome. Okay, we have one more caller that has popped on the line, so we'll take one more question from media. Go ahead.
And David Curley from Discovery Channel, your line is open.
Thank you much for taking the call, and I did join late, and if you've answered this question, please ignore and move on. But I was hoping, Shane, you could fill out the narrative a little bit on the Nakula. You mentioned that we know the alarm went off both on the ground and at the station at the same time. You said you went to the capsule. Did you close the hatch? Did you come back out with another alarm go back? Could you just fill out that narrative for us without jeopardizing the investigation? Just give us a sense of what you guys did in that time period. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I didn't get the original event you were asking about. Could you please restate that?
It was the Nakula with the inadvertent thruster firing.
Okay, we're with you now. Yeah, so that was an interesting time, of course. The loss of attitude control, or LOAC as we call it, when it happened. I think a handful of us, or 3 or 4 of us, were in the Columbus module at the time when the alarms went off. We immediately then reported to the U.S. laboratory, which is Aki was the commander at the time, and we showed up, and Aki started giving us roles and responsibilities to react to the situation, and everybody kind of fell in line with our training and just started reacting under Aki's leadership. And then we just, shortly after that, we were pretty much controlling the space station, because the ground couldn't send the commands due to our tumbling sensation that we were going through there. The communication just wasn't great for the ground to be able to talk to the space station. So we had to do it. We relied on our training, and it just kind of kicked in. The stuff that we thought we'd never ever use, we were using, and we worked really well together as a team to kind of get that situation back under control. And I don't even know the time frame, but maybe half an hour later, I think the station was back in the correct attitude. And then we had did a lot of debriefings to try to figure out what went wrong, how do we prevent it in the future, and we would never ever get to do that again, but guess what, we did. So anyway.
All right, thank you. We'll wrap up with some fun moments from the Crew 2 mission, of course, the Space Olympics. And I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Crew 2, for joining us and for answering these questions, and also for sharing your missions on social media with us. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. You can follow the latest updates on the International Space Station on nasa.gov/station, and by following the International Space Station on social media.